So my name is Kristen Summers, and I am the owner of Redbat Books. And I wanted to do a series of interviews with some of our authors, especially now since with COVID we can't do in-person book readings and such. So I thought this might be a fun way to get some more information out of my authors and just get to know them better and share that uh, information with our readers. So in this video, I am speaking with Michael Loyd Gray, the author of the Armageddon Two-Step, which we published in December of 2019, just right before everything started going crazy. And I've had to do this in two different stages because the first interview we were having some technical difficulties. So, excuse me. So we've pieced it together, and hopefully we can give you a fun interview to watch. So, in addition to the Armageddon Two-Step, Michael Loyd Gray is the author of the novels Well Deserved, Exile on Kalamazoo Street, The Canary, King Biscuit, and Not Famous Anymore. He earned a Master's of Fine Arts from Western Michigan University, a bachelor's from the University of Illinois, and he teaches creative writing and British/American literature at a college in South Carolina. He won the 2005 Alligator Juniper Fiction Prize, the 2008 Soul Books Prose Series Prize, and a novel support grant from the Elizabeth Grant Foundation. His volume of creative nonfiction, still sort of original in unoriginal times, was released in 2016. Gray is a lifelong fan of the Rolling Stones, the Chicago Bears, and Fender guitars. So I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, I can hear you now. How about me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
So how are you doing?
Yeah, well, I'm fine. It's the internet. They detected some problem with the signal. It comes and goes.
Okay.
Well, let's see if we can make it work. You never know.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
I always think better with a guitar.
That's all right. It works for me.
If I put the camera down, you can probably see
Yeah, I can
all
see
the other guitars.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
there's a whole forest of them back there.
Yes. That's great.
This is a custom-made Telecaster that I
Okay.
had made for me by a designer in Chicago, and it fits my left hand perfectly. The neck was created for my hand.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I have all these other guitars that are far more valuable and vintage, but this one's easier to play because it was made for me.
Right.
Anyway, so we might get lucky and pull this off, so let's just do it.
Okay. All right. Well, as you know, I have a list of some questions I was just going to ask, and this, interviewing is not necessarily my thing. I'm very good with just being behind the computer and hiding a little bit. So feels a little strange to me, but at the same time, it's exciting to be able to talk to you instead of just through email. So
Yeah, great.
to see you. So,
I feel like I'm Keith Richards being interviewed here.
well, that's good. So if you're okay, I'll just kind of start listing off some of the
Maybe
questions.
I'm going to be. I'll need some cocaine and heroin.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have that for you. All right. So, when did you start writing? Did you write as a kid?
Not as a kid. I started reading as a kid. I started reading eventually serious books at a pretty young age.
Hmm.
I really didn't start writing until just before I went to grad school. I mean, I'd already been a reporter for newspapers. That's a different kind of writing, you know. And so the few years before I left newspapers and went to grad school to earn an MFA, I started writing stories, and that was when I went through that change from writing newspapers to creating, real stories with characters and locations um, and then after I left grad school, it was a process of a few more years, but it took off.
Okay. So whenever we're emailing, it always
I
seems
mean,
like
my overnight success as a writer, 20 some years.
I didn't quite catch that. I'm sorry.
My overnight success as a writer took about 20 years.
Okay, right. Right. It always seems like you're writing something. So how many unpublished and or half finished books do you have?
Well, I have 6 finished novels. So I've published 6 novels, and I have 6 more that are completed that just haven't been published. And part of that is because 3 of them I just did one after the other in the last 2 years. So
Hmm.
as soon as I finished one, I seemed to have a new one come, and I would do it. And then as soon as I finished that one, I'd have another idea. And I just got a new idea for one, and I wrote a prologue for it. Um, but I'm really not going to work on it very consistently until I get back to Michigan in 2 months.
Okay, right. Yeah, that's exciting that you get to move back to where you want to be.
Yeah, yeah, sure. It's a great place, and I've got a house up there. And the summers are so much more moderate than down here in South Carolina,
Right.
and I don't mind winter. Snow doesn't bother me that much. So, and plus my 2 cats, that's the home they grew up in.
Okay.
When they were kittens, we grew up in that house, and then we moved down here, and so now they get to go home, and I think it'll freak them out a little bit.
Right. You should be happy though in the end.
There's one of them over there behind the laptop over there.
Okay, fun.
She probably won't come into the picture though.
Uh, so, what's your favorite underappreciated novel?
I didn't catch the last part.
Oh, what is your favorite underappreciated novel?
Are you asking about one of mine?
It could be one of yours. I'm just curious, what one of your favorite novels would be that just doesn't get enough praise.
Um, you know, I think the one that I would say did get recognized in its day, but probably is sort of forgotten now. It's a novel called Norwood by Charles Portis. And Norwood's a very small, short novel, more like a novella, really. But first time I read it, it really resonated with me. It's a kind of absurdist story about this guy named Norwood who goes on the road to collect a debt, and all these weird things happen to him. Um, and I think that's what I always point to as one that I have as a sentimental favorite. I mean, it's not the best novel I've ever read, but it's pretty good, and it just the story, it just tickled me.
Right.
And many people probably don't know who Charles Portis is. He's the guy who wrote True Grit, which
Okay.
was a selling novel, made into a movie, made into several movies actually. And
Right.
he wrote some other things too. But Norwood is just a kind of a ridiculous little story, and I like ridiculous little stories.
Great.
Really, to be honest with you, Charles Portis's style was probably somewhat an influence for Armageddon, you
Okay.
know? Probably.
I'm not sure this is gonna work.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. That's
So
better.
I'm sitting here with the lovely Beatles in the background.
I see.
Yeah, that's one of my inspirations, the Beatles, the Fab Four.
Yep.
Tomorrow in class, we're going to look at a new video excerpt from a new film about the Beatles. It's coming out later this year.
Okay.
And the film is in HD. And there's some incredible footage of the Beatles in the studio in their very last days. And the quality is so good, you feel like you're in the studio with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really amazing to see.
Yeah, that's great.
You really see that charisma that they had,
Mm-hmm.
that likability. It really just drips off of them.
Right, right. Oh, that's great.
Well, if we're going to be able to do this, then I'm ready. Ready when you are.
Okay. Well, I think we can go ahead and get started. I think if you're okay with it, maybe today I'll have you start reading uh, a few excerpts first, and then I'll kind of launch into some questions after that, if that works.
Okay. I selected a couple things that are short,
Okay.
and you know, I don't know that I had enough time to really go through it and find something that really stood out in some amazing way, because I don't remember what's in here, and I'd have to really read it, you know, to do that. My video is moving slow, but I guess it's responding. So okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
So I thought I would just the two sections I would read is the opening, because I'm really happy with how the first paragraphs developed and made the story. I mean, there was a time when all I had was that opening paragraph, which I thought was, wow, this really sets up this guy in an interesting way. And it was enough for me to keep going and really put him into action.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other section, I wanted to read the very first conversation that he has with Roger Valkyrie,
Okay.
which I got to make sure I've got the right page. Yeah. And, you know, Roger Valkyrie, you know, might be my favorite character because he's so off the wall. He's so weird, but in a likable way.
Exactly.
It's like you can tell that he's sort of bored with his job, but on the other hand, he does feel protective over Shelby.
Right.
So it makes for an interesting dynamic. So I'm just going to end up reading. The first thing is only going to be what, one, two, three long paragraphs that really sets the scene for it.
Okay.
And I hope that I read well. I don't usually read out loud to anybody, so I don't know if I have my reading voice going, but
I'm sure you'll do great.
and I have not read this book in a long time.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if I ever told you, but I completed it probably 6 years ago.
Okay.
Probably 6 years before it was published, and you tend to lose track of it. So,
Right.
I mean, I've written 4 novels since then.
Wow.
Okay, so the Armageddon Two-Step. Shelby Albert Goddard once saved the world, as in terra firma, planet Earth, the whole damn global enchilada. Before that, he flipped burgers for a summer at McDonald's, but always the saving the world gig led his resume. Not that he needed a resume, because he got a boatload of cash from a grateful U.S. government, and the rest of the planet was awfully stoked too. Diamonds arrived from South Africa. Switzerland dispatched a ton of cheese and a banking representative. More vodka than Shelby could ever want came from Russia. He was even relieved of ever having to pay taxes. A very official card in his wallet attested to that privilege. But tribute didn't stop there. Congress enacted Shelby Goddard Save the World Day, though the Tea Party cabal voted no, of course. Shelby's Boise, Idaho hometown made him honorary mayor. The CIA and FBI gave gold badges, but emphasized he had no real authority and not to arrest anyone or attempt espionage. NASA named a shuttle after him and offered a ride, which Shelby declined, fear of heights. Even a moderate roller coaster scared the bejesus out of him. The president's wife kissed Shelby on the mouth, which irked the president, but Shelby had saved the world, and so the president gracefully looked the other way. Shelby's likeness was chiseled onto Mount Rushmore, which made it crowded. His face pinched, and he looked like he was whispering impertinently in Lincoln's ear. But Dancing with the Stars promised to pair him with one or more Kardashians, and Miley Cyrus gave him an energetic hand job in the back of her limo, though her tongue creeped him out and he kept his eyes shut. Keith Richards taught him guitar chords and shared a joint and mild hallucinations. Shelby also got beachfront property in Malibu, a lifetime pass to a Nevada brothel, and a pass for 10-cent tacos, the Bel Grande with extra sour cream, from any Taco Bell for 20 years. Nutrition experts concluded that 20 years was more than enough for Shelby to ruin his health. Publicly, he praised Taco Bell, but privately felt it was rather petty to charge him even a dime for a taco, because after all, he had saved the world. And, when I got to the point where I had those 3 or 4 paragraphs, that was when, for me, the story was really able to move forward. I felt like I'd set the stage for him so well that I could figure out where he would go and what he would do. So you want me to now read the exchange with Roger Valkyrie?
Sure.
Okay, well, so for any viewers that we have down the road who want to know the context for this, Shelby, because he saved the world and got all those perks, one of his perks is that an agent of the government, we never quite know what kind of an agent he is or who he is exactly, but he's kind of assigned to watch over Shelby. Not so much for Shelby's own well-being, but to make sure that Shelby doesn't screw up and say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And his name is Roger Valkyrie, although it's not his real name. I'm not sure that the book even reveals what his real name is. And honestly, I think I got the name Valkyrie when I was trying to figure out a name for him. I think I happened to see that movie with Tom Cruise called Valkyrie or whatever.
Right.
And I thought, okay, Valkyrie. I just pull that in and tack it onto him. And Roger, I'm pretty sure I was thinking of Roger Daltrey, the front man for The Who.
Right.
So it was a combination of Tom Cruise as a Nazi and Roger Daltrey of The Who, which is weird, but fits. Okay, so here we go. The agent assigned to Shelby was named Valkyrie. I love the new ringtone, Shelby said. Thought you might, Valkyrie said. Napoleon Solo was a cool dude. What about his sidekick, Ilya? Can't trust those Ruskies, Valkyrie said, but that's just me. How's that Ilya haircut working for you? I saw you on Oprah. It's getting there, Shelby said. I've been meaning to ask. Your name isn't really Valkyrie, right? Who would be named Valkyrie, Valkyrie said. Come on, Shelby, you graduated from Stanford, for God's sake. And I saved the world. That's the rumor, Valkyrie said. You don't believe it? I'm fucking with you, son, Valkyrie said. If it wasn't true, would we be talking right now? I suppose not, Shelby said. I suppose you're in a really secret location in Washington, maybe underground, right? A bunker? I'm sitting on the can at home, Valkyrie said, in Maryland. My wife is waiting on me so we can go to dinner. What's up, Shelby? Shelby explained that he'd been on the road for a while, out in the great wide open, as it were, an urban cowboy of sorts in his new Benz, to examine the country he had saved. Examining the entire world, he felt, would take too long, but he hadn't quite counted on becoming lonely so soon and feeling adrift despite his new mountain of cash. He was eating pretty damn well thanks to Taco Bell, and it even added a few pounds in his lanky frame could use, but he felt like it should be easier to know where to go and what to do. Otherwise, what good was it to have saved the world, other than having the opportunity to still pose the question, of course? How's that new Mercedes, kid? Valkyrie said. I hear it's a black 500 SL. How'd you know that? I'm a guy with the code name Valkyrie. How do you think I know? Shelby looked up into the night sky full of twinkling stars. Is there a satellite watching me? God, no, Valkyrie said. We have better uses for satellites, like watching that nutcase who runs North Korea scratch his fat ass. You really watch stuff like that? Shelby said. I'm fucking with you again, kid, Valkyrie said. Besides, another agency keeps track of that wacko. Oh, Shelby said, I'll have to get better at recognizing bullshit. You'll get the hang of it. We're just starting out together. So how'd you know about my car? One of our agents saw your TV commercial and gave me a call. Sometimes that's how it goes. The cloak and dagger shit is overrated and overblown. You okay, kid? Shelby hesitated. It felt odd to open up to a secret agent named Valkyrie who was sitting on a toilet halfway across the country. Are you really a secret agent, Valkyrie? Good question, Shell. I'm not James Bond or Jason Bourne or even Inspector Clouseau, though my wife sometimes thinks I am. I don't think I resemble Agent Smith in The Matrix either. I've been told that a couple times that. Does that help or make it worse? Worse, actually, but that's okay, I suppose. Look at it this way, Shell. Almost nobody knows what I do, and even my wife knows very little. And so I suppose I am a secret agent of sorts, but I don't topple governments or assassinate anyone. How'd you get the job of babysitting me? We drew straws. Sorry. Don't apologize, kid. This beats getting horny foreign diplomats out of messes their dicks created. And that kind of ends the first section of conversation. But for anybody that hasn't read the book, all through the book, Roger and Shelby have these kind of amazingly weird conversations, either by phone or in person. I mean, there are many times where Roger Valkyrie gets on a plane or a helicopter and flies to wherever Shelby is, just to, be his kind of gentle guiding light. And I think really most of the really good humor in the book is in those exchanges between Roger and Shelby. So let me put this back here. Don't want to mess up the cover since I got these nice hardcovers here. So there we go. A nice commercial for it.
Yes.
The Armageddon Two-Step, folks. Don't leave home without it. And it won an award. It won a Book Excellence Award, which means that not only is the book okay, but the book's design is really good too. So much credit goes not just to me, but to Kristen, who put this package together. So there you go. All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Now I need to play a chord or two to get my mind going again.
All right.
I was thinking that there's a good lesson about writing here, because people try when they write sometimes to get really fancy. And usually some of the best writing that we'll ever come across is not fancy writing. It's pretty simple. But in that simplicity, we get these great messages, or we get these great scenes, these great visuals. And guitar is the same way. There are simple chords, and you can just use 2 or 3 and play all these different songs. And they all sound good, and they're all coming out of the same place, but they're different, and they all sound good. So simple writing can produce all kinds of different stories that sound different, but they're all good. And the author didn't have to become Shakespeare, right, to tell those stories. So it's like if you have a D and an A and an E, all these songs come to you. Like, that's something by Tom Petty. I don't even know what it is, but it's like, if you use the same chords, that's Gloria by the Shadows at Night, old time rock and roll.
Right.
And then I realized with the same chords the other day, I played this. What I Like About You by a band called the Romantics. And then there's just all kinds of stuff that comes just out of those things. Like for example, if anybody's watching and they know the Rolling Stones, this is the Rolling Stones. That's Gimme Shelter, famous song, right? But if you play the exact same chords and just a little bit of a different rhythm, that's All Along the Watchtower by Bob Dylan, and Jimi Hendrix made that famous. So they're really, and I teach my students that writing and music have a lot of the same qualities, and that the strategy for playing guitar and for writing a novel are pretty much the same. You don't have to get too fancy. You just have to put enough of the words together in the right arrangement, and it works.
Right.
You know, sometimes I take a guitar into class and we do that. We talk about tone in writing, and then they listen to tone in chords, because each chord has a different tone. So that's my lesson for today.
Fantastic.
So what else can I do? I'm happy to get this out there, and maybe people will enjoy it.
Right. Yeah. No, this is fun. This is fun so far. I have some just some random questions. Since you're talking about writing, as a writer, what was the best money you ever spent, or the best practice that you ever started?
Well, if you're talking about the best money I ever spent as a writer, then it would have to be when I quit working as a newspaper reporter and I went into the MFA program at Western Michigan.
Okay.
And when I say money I spent, I really did pay for it. I took out student loans and I paid them back. So I really did spend my own money. I really did do that. In fact, I paid off my graduate student loan about 3 years ago. So that was probably the best money I ever spent, was what it took to go through the MFA program, because I got to hang around with other writers, and it opened up my mind enough for me to switch from writing journalism to writing fiction. So that was, I doubt if I've ever spent money any better than that.
Okay. Do you have I know you are teaching classes and such, but do you have a writing routine that you try to stick to?
Yeah. When I'm writing a novel, and I guess I'd have to count them, but I'm going to say that I've written 13, maybe 6 of them are published, and either 6 or 7 are not published. So about 13. And whenever I'm writing a novel, when I really know that I'm writing a novel and I'm not just messing around, then I work every day, and that's really important. I would hardly miss a day unless something extraordinary happened. And I've even worked on a novel when I had, a bad cold or a little flu or whatever, because I could still do it. And I learned a long time ago that when you're writing a novel, which is so much different than a short story, is that you really need to maintain continuity and a consistency with the narrative thread. So at the end of a day of writing, and you put that story to bed in your subconscious, the very next day, your goal is to dredge it back up and to be able to grab that thread and run with it again. And, at least for me, the best way to always be able to keep that thread fresh is to work every day. And that includes Saturday or Sunday. Right. And that way, the next day, I don't have to struggle with picking up the story again, because it's so recent and it's so fresh. And my subconscious has worked on it during the night. I'm a real big believer in the subconscious for a writer, which is something that Hemingway talked about. He likened his subconscious to a wellspring that overnight would replenish itself. And I really believe in that, or I think it really works for me. So this new novel that I'm tinkering with, I wrote a prologue for. I'm breaking from my routine only a little bit because I'm getting ready to move back to Michigan in 2 months. And I don't really want to start full scale production on a novel over these next 2 months. So I wrote a prologue that I like. When I get to Michigan, I'll start hammering away every day with it because I don't feel like I can give it every day for the next 2 months. And I believe that's what it would take.
Right. That makes sense.
You just fire away. I can multitask. I can multitask.
Okay. So is there a period of your life that you tend to pull from most often when you're writing? If you even do that, pull from your own experiences?
Um, Armageddon really doesn't do that.
Okay.
Other novels that I've written do. Armageddon is a story written pretty exterior for me. Although I did get the idea for the book one night when I was watching a movie, and it was that movie with Bruce Willis called Armageddon,
Okay.
where Bruce Willis and his buddies go up to an asteroid and they save the world.
Right.
And when it was over, I was sitting there thinking, geez, I wonder what it would be like for somebody who did save the world. And really within a few days, I thought, there's a story. So I started writing the story of Shelby, but it really doesn't line up with my life very much at all, except that I used Arkansas as one of the locations, and I was born in Arkansas, and I've been there. Um, and I don't think that Shelby is. I mean, there's probably some qualities about Shelby that I would, if I really looked at him, I would have to admit that maybe they're similar to me. But I think an awful lot of Shelby is not me. You know, I think he's a creation and he lives on his own.
Mm-hmm.
But I have gone back in several novels and started from some place in my very distant past. And I've used the setting in 4 or 5 of the novels. I created this fictional small town called Argus, and Argus is in Illinois, where I grew up. But I created the town, then I made it fictional, but it is, as a starting point, modeled loosely on a small town that I used to live on in the summers. We had a cottage on a lake in the summers, and I lived on that lake. And so I loosely saw that lake and that town and created Argus. But then everything in Argus really is fabrication that comes out of somewhere else.
Okay.
I try hard not to create characters who I think are really just me walking around with a different coat on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things in the Armageddon Two-Step is just all the names that you chose and the business names.
I can't remember them.
Well, they're just, I don't know, they're just fun, and they roll off the tongue or the mind as you're reading it. And do you have a process, or do you kind of collect these names as they come to you and then use them in your books, or do you have a process for choosing mostly character names, but even business or place names?
Well, when I created the town of Argus, Illinois, that came from an album by a band called Wishbone Ash, and the name of the album was Argus. And it's a very cool cover. It shows like an old Greek soldier with the helmet and the spear standing on a mountaintop. It's a very cool album. And I always loved it. So when I needed a name for a town, I remembered that it was one of my favorite album covers. And I thought, Argus, Illinois. So I looked it up. There was no Argus, Illinois. There was an Argyle, Illinois, but no Argus. So it was Argus. And that's how that name came about. I'll be honest with you, an awful lot of the names I give characters, they just come out of me. They just come out of my head and they surprise me. as much as they would anybody else. But I will admit this, that when it comes to choosing names, I'm always very much in awe and admiration of Charles Dickens. Some of the names in Dickens are just hilarious names, you know, like Macabre, who, by the way, Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, his favorite guitar is a Fender Telecaster, a 1957 or 8 Telecaster, and he calls it Macabre because he's a Dickens fan.
Okay.
And some of those names out of Charles Dickens just always make me laugh out loud. So I kind of think about how Dickens did it when I do it. And for Armageddon, I knew that I needed some really silly ass names. But, you know, I can't remember any. If you know any, tell me, but I can't remember them.
Right.
I mean, Shelby Albert Goddard, his last name is Goddard because the American father of rocket science was a guy named Goddard. And since Shelby is a scientist, I thought, okay, he'll be Goddard, Shelby Albert Goddard. But, and I explained where I got Roger Valkyrie from.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I don't remember. Oh yeah, there are all those really nitwit people in Arkansas with all the weird names. Yeah, and 2 of them have the real names of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This is Harry Longabout, and I think Harry Longabout is the Sundance Kid's real name, and Butch Cassidy's real name is something else. So I threw those in there.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I don't think long about a name. For some reason, names just pour right out of me, especially if I've already decided, okay, it's a serious name, so a serious name comes. But if I want a really weird name, that comes too.
Right.
It just comes out. I mean, some people will look through the phone book,
right,
or look around. I never do that. It's like when I need a name, it just comes to me.
It's just there. That's great.
It's just there, yeah.
So what for you is the most difficult part of the writing process? Is it getting started, finishing, the whole thing?
I won't start writing a story until it has stayed in my head for a little while. And it doesn't have to be very much. It can be just fragments. But I'm not going to sit down and start writing until I know that the story has passed the test of staying in my head a while. And then once it does that, at a certain point, I think, okay, that story isn't going away. And so I think it's a story. And then oddly enough, I almost always get a title for the novel before I start writing it. And that's kind of the opposite for a lot of people. I mean, Hemingway created his titles after the book was done. He went and looked in the Bible often for his titles, but he was done writing the book before he did it. Me, I have to get a title before I start writing. And then somehow when I think that the title is the title that it's going to be, that helps spark the story. So I've got this new novel that I'm thinking of doing. I've only got a 5-page prologue, but I kind of like it. But the title that came to me was Brilliant Blue. Brilliant Blue. And I thought, I like that. That's the title. That's probably the title. So now I'm waiting on it to help me develop the story. Right. So for me, my stories come out of the title. But for a lot of writers, the title comes after they've written the story. It just works better for me this way.
Right. Okay.
I mean, Armageddon, I knew the title the night that I watched that movie.
Right.
I had the title within an hour of watching the movie.
It's fun to know that. Do you have a favorite book from your childhood?
Well, how are we defining childhood? I mean, I started reading, my mother says, at a pretty young age. She said, even as a real little kid, I could read signs on the highway and stuff. So I was reading probably a little bit sooner than a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that she bought me a set of the Hardy Boys. Do you remember the Hardy Boys
Oh,
series?
yeah, definitely.
I had the entire Hardy Boys, and I read the entire Hardy Boys. I couldn't tell you a thing about it now, but I read them, and probably what was good about that was it helped me improve my reading at a young age. I got to where I could read a book. But really, the first time that I read serious fiction that I knew was not bullshit, that I knew was the real thing, was in junior high school. And I read The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my English class, we read A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. And both those books made me stop and think, this isn't the bullshit that I've read up until now. This is real writing. This is real storytelling. It's literature.
Right.
And even though the Hemingway novel and the Dickens novel were really different kinds of novels, I recognized what they were doing, and that kind of got me going. I think that the opening paragraph of A Tale of Two Cities and the ending paragraph of A Tale of Two Cities are among the best openings and endings in all of literature. It's a far, far better thing I do now than I've ever done before. And the opening is, it was the time of this, it was the time of that, it was, and the opening of A Tale of Two Cities is actually technically a series of comma splices that would flunk an English 101 class. But Dickens gets away with it,
Right.
So if you're asking about when did I read stuff that I knew I had stepped up to a whole new level, it was probably 7th or 8th grade. And from then on, I started reading good literature on my own. So by the time I got to high school, I'd already read Hemingway, Dickens, Faulkner, Fitzgerald. I'd even already encountered Gertrude Stein and other people that you usually don't get exposed to until you're in college or something.
Right. So, if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
I would say that you were absolutely right to never give up. Because in the beginning, when I started writing short stories, it was hard to get published, and it's easy to quit when you're not sure that there's anything coming of it. But then, one day, and when I was sending out stories to magazines, there was that day that finally came where the envelope came back and it didn't have my story in it. It had a note that said, "We're publishing your story." And I'm like, what the hell happened? Did you get it wrong? And then, I realized that you have to persevere as a writer. And I mean, I worked with a novelist in the MFA program at Western Michigan, John Smolens, who said, he says, for a lot of writers, it'll be 10 or 20 years after they seriously start work before they really achieve any success. And he was right. It was a good 10 or more years before what I was trying to do seriously started to get at least published here and there. And I won a couple of awards, nothing big, but a couple of awards, and when all you've heard is no, 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 no for a long time, suddenly getting a few yeses, it's sort of like somebody who is having a really hard time with dating until somebody finally says yes, and then they get really motivated, to go back into dating again because they had a little bit of success. And that's how it was. And I just developed this very, very tough attitude that I would not give up no matter what. And so back in the days when you would send your story in the mail to a magazine with an envelope prepaid for them to send it back to you when they said no, I developed a rule. Every time a story came back that was rejected, I would immediately take it out put it into a new envelope, address it to a new magazine, and go to the post office and mail it that day. And that totally offset the rejection.
Wow.
I tell myself, hey, now it's back again. It's back out there. It's alive again. And that really made it easier to get past the rejection.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Yeah, but now we don't do it that way anymore. We do it by email now. We do it online,
Right.
which is better. It's less time consuming. Um, you know, when the New Yorker went to doing that by email, you can now send a story to the New Yorker by email. They won't read it if it's not sent by an agent. That's their rule.
Ah,
But I did send a story to him some years ago, many years ago, really, when they first started that. And the rejection came back really quick, and I just wrote back by email, there's no way you read it. Come on, be honest about this. You know, of course they didn't reply,
right.
but um, I did have an agent once admit that when she rejected a book that she hadn't read it, because I called her on it, and in a moment of honesty, she said, "You're right. I really didn't look at it."
Hmm.
I said, "Well, just tell me that. You know, just tell me that, and I'll hate you less."
Well, I think that's kind of all the questions I had written down, but this has been really fun. Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to talk about, or?
Um, well,
It's okay if you don't.
no, I mean, I'm just kind of trying to put it together. I think, you know, that almost everybody who tries to become a writer, one of the first questions they struggle with is what should they write about? And for a long time, there was this very stereotypical approach to that. You know, I mean, when I took a fiction class at the University of Illinois, and I took it with this writer who was a really good writer, who had won the Flannery O'Connor Award one year. He was really quite a good writer and teacher, and he and I became friends. But I remember that was the advice he gave early on in the semester, was to write what you know, because that's what people have always said.
Mhm.
You know, for generations, the advice to writers is write about what you know. Well, here's what I would tell any writer that's listening to this. That's bullshit. It really is. Because if you only write about what you know, you ain't got a lot to write about. I mean, if you've never been to Germany, does that mean you can't write about Germany? No, you can write about Germany. I mean, in some of my novels, there have been things that took place in places that I've never been to, but you can still create the essence of those places. You can still make the reader believe that they are there in that place. And technically speaking, I don't know it, but that's what a writer does, is they give the impression, they create the illusion that they know it. So I would never anymore tell a student, write about what you know. I would say, write about what you want to write about and figure out how to make the reader believe that you know about it. Because that's the writer's job. It's all an illusion. It's all a trick in a way.
Right.
So, I mean, give you a good example. When I wrote The Canary, which is about Amelia Earhart and Ernest Hemingway, and I gave them a relationship, a friendship that never happened. They never met. Although her senior year of high school, she was in Chicago, and his sophomore year, he was in Chicago at different high schools, but they never met. And this is in like 1914, 1915. So I thought, well, what if they met? It would be a really interesting relationship. And when I realized that they had been in the same town at the same time, I realized, okay, I can make it a story because historically it's accurate. But all this stuff that I had to create, I didn't know anything about. I wasn't even alive in 1914, right? So does that mean I can't write a story set in 1914? Does that mean technically, I'm writing about something I don't know? I just found out what it was, right? And I learned the hard way. In the draft, I discovered that I had Amelia and Hemingway go to a Cubs game at Wrigley Field. Well, in 1914, it wasn't even called Wrigley Field. It was called Bauman Park, and the Cubs didn't even play there. Cubs played somewhere else. So
Wow.
I had to learn that, right? And there's a scene based on Hemingway's real life where his mother took him to the art museum in Chicago, which is true. She used to take him and his sisters to the art museum. Well, I didn't know that either. And so I thought, well, how am I going to make readers believe that he really went to this museum? So I went online and I eventually found a copy of the exhibits that were on display at that museum in 1914, which means that technically, if he was there, he would have seen some of them.
Right.
So I was able to then say that Hemingway's mother took him to see the new Cezanne or whatever it is, and historically, it's true.
Right.
And Hemingway played on his football team in high school, and so I started to create them playing football at Oak Park High. Come to find out, they didn't play their football at Oak Park High. They played down the road at another place, right? So I learned all this history, and I made the novel historically accurate, and it works. But again, technically, I was writing about something I didn't know, something I didn't experience. But by doing the research, I made it credible, I made it authentic, and so it works. And so it's really not true that I couldn't write that story because I didn't live in 1914 in Chicago. And so I would tell readers or writers, if you want to write about some man or woman living in France in the 1500s, there's no reason why you can't do that. First, find out what it was like in the 1500s, and whatever they do, make sure that any of the historical stuff seems to suggest to the reader that it sounds like it's right. You don't, I mean, J.K. Rowling doesn't live in that world that she writes about because it doesn't exist, right?
Right.
I mean, I've never read her books, but I've seen 2 or 3 of the movies. That world doesn't really exist. So you could say, well, J.K. Rowling is writing about something that she doesn't know. Well, here's the thing. If she's writing about something she doesn't know, she's made a lot of money at it. She's one of the richest writers in the world. So it's working. It's working. And by the way, she's a great example to writers because her first novel was rejected by a dozen publishers. And nobody wanted to publish her until some small publisher did. And she even got kind of suicidal and very depressed, but she didn't quit. She never quit. And look what happened. She's literally worth millions and millions and millions, and her work is read everywhere. And it's all because she didn't throw in the towel, because she's kept at it. So, and any writer that has any ability at all, if they will stick to it, then they do have a chance of some success. But I've seen a lot of people that had skills and talent who never published a thing because they didn't have the ability to stick with it. And you just knew that they weren't ever anything was ever going to come of them, even though you felt like they had some ability, because they just weren't going to do the work. And that's kind of the difference between a world-class athlete and every other athlete, right? Is that world-class athlete puts in the work.
Right.
And everybody else doesn't. So
excellent advice.
The other day when we were trying this, you asked me my favorite book, and I don't think I could say one book is my favorite. But when I was a kid, some of those books by Jules Verne, I really liked, and especially 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Right.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. When I read that book, I felt like I was totally disconnected from the world around me, and that I was entirely in that world of the book. And then when I saw the film with Kirk Douglas and James Mason, it was like magical to me. So stuff like that really made an impact on me when I was, only 12 or 13 or 14. And maybe it had enough of an impact that it planted a kind of a seed that took a long time to grow. But because that seed was planted, I would later in life be able to draw on it and do this. And I think, when I went to grad school in the MFA program, probably, not only the best money I spent, but the best decision I ever made. And I would say probably the most fun 2 or 3 years of my entire life. I really, really just enjoyed that whole thing. And now I write because I really have to. It's not something that I can just play with. It's something I really have to do. And if I'm not writing, if I take a few months off, which I have to force myself to do, I feel kind of schizophrenic. On the one hand, I'm grateful for the break, but on the other hand, I feel like something has been taken away that I really need. So I have to go back to it.
Right.
And if it's that way for a person, then they might be able to be a really good writer, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I love the bats, of course.
Thanks.
I probably told you the story about my Michigan house where I had bats that lived in the chimney in the fireplace. So I never used the fireplace because I didn't want to disturb them. But one night they got into the house. 2 bats got into the house and were flying around the house with 2 of my cats trailing them. Up and down the stairs. Bats go up the stairs, cats go up the stairs. And I caught both of them with a mason jar, one at a time.
Right.
They got really tired of dodging the cats, and so they would land on the top of a door, and they would be so tired that I could just scoop them into the mason jar. And you'll love this part. I let one of them go and went and caught the other one. And then I went on the back deck with my cat, EH, who was this big orange, cool cat. And I said, okay, look, we're going to let this one go now. So I emptied the bat out of the mason jar onto the deck, and me and EH were standing there watching him for him to leave. And he was probably a little tired and disoriented. So he just sat there for about 30 seconds. And then all of a sudden, and it was just like in those Dracula movies where Dracula pulls up his wings like this.
Right.
That bat just went like this and then took off. And me and the cat were like, what the hell was that? It was probably one of the most satisfying things I'd ever seen. That bat just talk about making a great exit, just right off in the distance, And I swear my cat was hanging on every flap of the wing. You just wow. Now I know that when bats show up, that I think it's good luck.
It is good luck. Yep.